welcome back to the DSR channel. This is a video relating to the Unearthed Arcana we got in January 2026, a few days ago. And I've already presented all of the review and analysis videos on all 4 of these subclasses we got in the Mystic Unearthed Arcana. Arcana. And now I'm doing the series on unionizing feedback, okay, which is gonna collect all the feedback I get from people on the initial video, put it together, and present here's a tweaked version of this UA that we think is better. And the idea being that we all then submit this, or as close to this, whichever parts you agree with, submit this in your UA feedback when they open the feedback survey next week. Hopefully that's enough time. We are kind of pressed for time to try to do this. It's a lot to try to squeeze in, so I'm going to also try to do the Vestige Warlock today. I have a bunch of playtest UA playtest sessions scheduled next week on Start Playing Games. So if you want to participate in that, great. If you don't want to play on Start Playing Games, play test it with your other tables, other ways, however you love to play, and then just give me the feedback on this video of how it went, what were the highlights, what were the things that looked like problems, whatever you weren't expecting, things like that. What did you confirm? What did you, prove incorrect? Things like that. Ideally, we'll have, it's not a lot of time. We have a total of 3 weeks from the time they release a UA until the time they close the UA feedback survey. They usually wait 1 week after they release the UA to open the survey, and then you have 2 weeks for feedback. It's not a lot of time to do all this analysis, get some feedback loops, present, represent changes and a few rounds of changes, and also play test in there. So, we need help from everybody. Everybody get involved. Let's play test these things and make them awesome, because friends don't let friends let the banneret happen again. Wait, what a cool theme of a class that just totally ruined by poor mechanics. So let's talk about the Magic Stealer Rogue. So one viewer gave me some great feedback saying that when you're talking about trying to do rounds of improvement on something, you should articulate the problems to solve, which is a great idea. This is just how I think about things. Every time I'm presented with anything, I just think about what are the problems with it and immediately start thinking about how do I solve those problems. So this is how I just think by default, but it's better to be explicit about it, right? So let's articulate the problems we're trying to solve with any of these changes we're making here. So first up, we have 2 resource types, right? 2 different resources that are added to this thing that need to both be tracked separately. They recharge at different times at different ways. And one of them you just don't get enough uses of, okay? Next problem is Drain Magic is too punishing to use in combat before level 13, making the rogue perform solely as a healer on that turn, right? If you're going to Drain Magic to save one of your allies from some bad spell, that's your action, and you are a marshal, which means you're spending your whole turn doing nothing but dispelling that spell. That alone makes me think that this will just almost never get used. Like, how bad would the spell have to be that it's better for the rogue to spend their turn removing that spell than to just continue to attack, because that's your job, primary job as a marshal, deal damage, lock down enemies, deal with enemies. Maybe you don't have a it in the party. It would be very rare circumstances, which means this thing is going to be something that's not, even though you can use it once per short rest, it'll be something that gets used once every 5 sessions or something like that. Which is unfortunate because Drain Magic is a super cool idea. So let's lean into it more. All right, next problem up. Drain Magic doesn't scale up to be able to affect higher level spells that will be more common in tiers 3 and 4, right? So you start off being able to affect 1st and 2nd level spells, which is fine in tier 1. Then it scales up to 3rd level spells at level 13. Now you're tier 3. You're probably seeing a lot of 5th and even 6th level spells, 4th, 5th, and 6th level spells at this level. And you can't do anything about those, which means, and it's only going to get worse as you level up, right? You get into tier 4, you just might not see a 1st, 2nd, or 3rd level spell anymore. And then you have this whole feature that's core to your class that you just never get to use because they're casting 2 high level spells for you, which is not cool, right? That's not fun, but because you have this whole feature that you just can't use, but also doesn't make sense thematically. So that's a problem to solve. Next one is Drain Magic shenanigans with ritual spells. So you can have, and people are already, coming up with ways to do this. You can have the one of your allies just ritual cast detect magic, and then you drain it, right? They didn't spend a spell slot, and you're going to give them a 1st or 2nd level spell slot back. Then the other shenanigan, which is They cast a first level spell, and you drain it and give them a second level spell slot back. Um, that doesn't feel. Neither of those feels right. It makes it, weird. I think that's a problem to solve. A lot of people articulated that. Next problem: drain magic can only help allies and only those with spell casting. So it's not great. And somebody said this, and at first I wasn't sure I agreed, but the more I think about it, the more I do agree, which is you have a whole feature, like a big feature on your subclass, like a main thematic set of mechanics on your subclass, and it can only benefit other people, which isn't great. Especially when you're a marshal, right? If you are a caster and one of those casters who is capable of being the healer or the support, right? And you're going to be the support or healer, that's fine, right? You should have lots of features that are only, if you're the support character, that only help other allies, right? But you're a marshal, right? This is a martial class. By definition, you cannot be full support, full healer, right? If you multi-class into healer support, you could, but that's a different thing. So you shouldn't be forced to have a major part of your mechanics of your subclass to only help other people with it. So we'll solve that problem. And also, I mean, what if you just don't have spellcasters in the party? Like you have a monk healer, mercy monk who's healing, and just the whole party is non-casters. Then you just can't even do anything. Like it doesn't do anything unless you fight spellcasting enemies, which is not always. Next problem to solve. Occult Shroud is not quite good enough, and non-detection is not quite clear enough. I'll get into that when we talk about it. And then lastly, Eldritch Implosion can't be used at all unless you face an enemy spellcaster, which again, like I said, is not always. Even at level 17, you may not run into an enemy spellcaster every day. And then you have this feature that you can't even use that day because you just happened not to run into an enemy spellcaster. So that'll be the last problem we're going to try to solve with these changes. And first up, we have a surprise bonus problem we're going to try to solve, which is the name. So people threw in these kinds of ideas: Arcane Disruptor, Mage Slayer, Arcane Plunderer, Spellfire Channeler. That's one I put in there, and Weave Reaver. That's another one I put out there. I feel like, honestly, I like Mage Slayer best. It doesn't hit exactly what this class is, but it probably lands better than anything and is just a lot more interesting sounding than Magic Stealer. Unfortunately, my big problem with Mage Slayer is that it's the same name as a feat. And name collisions always cause confusion. Always cause confusion when people are talking about things. So, yeah. Spellfire Channeler, that's obviously a reference to Forgotten Realms. Spellfire is the name of like raw magic. So Spellfire Channeler, maybe they can do something with that. I don't love it. I don't love the channeler portion of it. And of course, there's the problem with choosing something that's specific to a single campaign setting. Now you can always put in text that just says, well, you can call it different things in other campaign settings. We're already going to have to do that with the like Spellfire Sorcerer, and the Moonbard would have to be heavily reflavored. The Scion of the Three obviously has to be reflavored, but those were campaign specific subclasses. And then Weave Reaver, this is another Forgotten Realms one. The fabric of magic that just permeates the world is called the Weave in Forgotten Realms. And so this would be your reaving or tearing and apart the fabric of magic, the Weave Reaver, which I like that one probably second best after Mage Slayer. It is a little bit of a mouthful to say. I don't know. And it has the same problem as Spellfire, which is it's campaign specific. I don't know. I don't know that we've landed on a perfect one yet. Hopefully these will generate, ideas for people, and we get better ideas coming. Next, so the actual mechanical change, I felt like something was missing here to just lean into this theme of you are kind of like you hunt down magic and you manipulate it, you take it, you steal it, you do things with it. And at first I thought, well, let's give them free casting to detect magic equal to the spell casting ability score modifier, or the whatever your mental ability score modifier is here, but seemed unnecessary, right? Because then you're talking like 3 to 5 castings a day, which is probably more than you're going to need, and that's just another resource to track. So I just decided, and it kind of felt cool that this would become the nature of who you are, something has changed you, whether you studied and learned to do this. Maybe you were imbued with some sort of like weird alchemical process, kind of like how witchers are made in the Witcher universe. Um, I don't know. Maybe it's something about the way you were born. You're different than other people, and then something was done to enhance that. But you just are under the permanent effects of a detect magic spell all the time. You don't cast it. It doesn't use your concentration. It's just always going. If you happen to enter an anti-magic field, yes, that suppresses it, but it immediately resumes as soon as you're out of the anti-magic. And dispel magic can be used against you, but instead of removing the effect, it just suppresses it for 1 minute. Um, yeah, it's kind of a ribbon I thought was cool and thematic. Like they will just always see magic in range wherever it is, right? They can see magic through, some wood walls. They can see magic through, I don't know, plaster walls. They can see magic inside a chest. They just see magic all the time. It'll be useful. It's no way going to be overpowered. I've never seen anybody use detect magic and it was just overpowered. At most, it's useful. Often, it's not useful at all. Next, level 3 change. So this is a modification of the existing feature. So Sense Magic is an addition at level 3. This one would be a modification to empower sneak attack. So it all works exactly the same, but it doesn't have its own uses. Drain Magic is going to have its own uses and more uses, and you'll have to expend a use of Drain Magic to do Empower Sneak Attack. Okay, so we're going to unify this into one set of resources. We're going to give you more of them, and both of them will use the same resource. And the resource is going to be uses of Drain Magic. Okay, so let's go on to the other level 3, Drain Magic. All right, so keep everything as is, but with these changes. First up, change it to a bonus action instead of an action. I don't think that's necessary. Let them still be a rogue. Let them still try to do damage and sneak attack as their action, and then they just have this extra bonus action, which isn't going to come up often enough that that's going to be a big deal, right? How often are your allies going to have a spell to be drained, right? Maybe there's a bless spell running and you drain that. Cool. It's not going to be every combat. Also, like I said, we've unified the resources. So if you're going to do that, it comes at the cost of using up one of the same resources you could be using for Empower Sneak Attack. So there's a cost to it. And it's an interesting cost in the sense that that is a meaningful decision point you have to make. Is it worth it to restore this ally's spell slot? Or should I keep that and I deal more damage? Second, the problem, so we're going to change it so that you can drain higher level spells. We're still starting off at first and second level spells, but it restores a spell slot level equal to half the spell level drained rounded up. So if you drain a first or second level spell, you can restore a first level spell slot. Additionally, instead of restoring a spell slot to an ally, you can instead restore a charge to a charged uncommon magic item in your possession. The number of charges restored is equal to the level of spell slot that would be restored. So at this level, you would restore 1 charge by doing this. So you can recharge a magic item you have. So that gives you an alternate use of a way that it benefits you and a way to use this, even though you may not have any allies in the party who even needs to restore a spell slot or cares to restore a spell slot, right? Once you get high levels, they're not going to care about restoring first, second, and third level spell slots. But you'll still be able to recharge a magic item, which you'll probably have one that uses charges, and that'll be beneficial. And by the way, it just has to be in your possession. You don't have to be attuned to it. So maybe an ally have a staff of power. You're not using the staff of power. You just hold it, and then you can use this to recharge that staff of power for them. So you can recharge any magic item in the party. It just has to be in your possession at the time you do this. All right, and we're going to set the number of uses to equal to our charisma modifier per long rest. The main reason for that change, and I didn't list it as a problem solved, was just that we already have multiple rogue subclasses that use intelligence. Charisma, I feel like, fits the nature of some sort of innate connection to magic, which is what the sorcerer is, right? Sorcerers have an innate connection to magic. They don't have the ability to use magic because they have studied it like a wizard. And wisdom just didn't feel right. Like wisdom has never indicated an innate connection to magic. It is more represents a connection to some sort of supernatural power that you work with, as represented by clerics and druids, right? I know we have the swashbuckler rogue that uses charisma, but there are so many rogue subclasses. We should have, a few that use intelligence, a few that use charisma, and a few that use wisdom. Again, I lament once again that the Scion rogue didn't use wisdom. They used intelligence instead of wisdom. Big missed opportunity. You're literally connecting with some gods. Why are they using intelligence instead of wisdom? Oh well. All right. So, and you regain one use of drain magic when you complete a short rest. So you're going to have the same number of uses, but now at level 3, you're regaining one on a short rest. And then finally, just a simple thing that says you can't use drain magic on a spell with a ritual tag. Uh, yeah, I feel like you just have to have that to prevent those kind of shenanigans. Otherwise, they'll just, I don't know, maybe it's unnecessary with the way I change this, where drain magic is the same resource as empower sneak attack. So you're still deciding, like, even though they're cheesing it to use a ritual detect magic that you then drain to give them the spell slot back, that still came at the cost of your empower sneak attack. So maybe this is unnecessary. I don't know. Respond in comments. Level 9, magical sabotage. Keep it as is. Um, and add these modifications, which is you can now drain magic on 4th level spells, up to 4th level spells. Okay. So I felt like by this time you'd be meeting a lot of spellcasters that are casting 3rd and 4th level spells. You should be able to drain those as well. You might run into some that are casting a 5th level spell. That'll be probably the rarest thing you run into at this level. That might be the boss fight, and that boss may only be able to cast one 5th level spell. So that one you won't be able to drain, I guess. That should be quite rare. So that's the only modification to magical sabotage. Otherwise, magical sabotage is great, and it's mostly cunning strike options. We just needed to scale up drain magic at this level. Level 13, occult shroud. Keep it as is, except this debate kind of came up where some people are saying, well, it doesn't protect you from dark vision, see invisibility, and true sight, and things like that, because it's not creating a magical sensor. And in my mind, what you're doing is enhancing your eyes to be magical sensors. And that's what non-detection does, because it says you can't be targeted by divination spells, nor can you be perceived by magical sensors. I just interpret magical sensors as your eyes too. But I get how a DM might not interpret it that way. So let's just make it explicit and say, while you're under the effect of this non-detection spell, you also cannot be perceived by dark vision, see invisibility, true sight, or other forms of divination spells that enhance perception. Something like that. Let's just add that. So this is just a little better more often, or a little more useful more often. And I think makes sense, right? If somebody's got, if some spellcaster only has the ability to perceive you in darkness because they have dark vision spell going, then yeah, it feels like you should be able to, with this, shroud yourself from that spell effect. And again, in no way do I think this is even high powered, right? It's not OP, it's not high powered, it's maybe just good. I don't even know if it's good. It's maybe just okay, even with this change. But respond in comments with what you think. Level 13, improve magic, drain magic. Keep it as is, but now you can drain magic on 6th level spells, right? Because by now we might even face a 7th level spell, but again, that'll be their one 7th level spell slot. If they can even do it, it'll be the most rare thing. Anything else we can drain. Well, monsters don't use spell slots anymore, but they kind of keep it to the highest level spell they can cast is about what the highest level spell slot a caster of that CR, if you translate CR to player character level, would have. So they might have a 7th level spell, but most of their spells are going to be level 6 and lower. So you can still use this against most spells if you happen to run into a spellcaster, which isn't going to be very often either. So we're just trying to increase the percentage of chance of circumstances when you can use this cool feature. And now you can recharge rare magic items. I was a little bit nervous about that. This is a feature. This is like a feature that the Artificer now has, where they can recharge magic items, but they can only. It's controlled by the fact that they can only recharge items they've created through replicate magic item, and we don't have that restriction here, right? We couldn't because you don't have replicate magic item. So the only other way to control it is by rarity of magic, or that's the only way I came up with, rarity of magic items. So if somebody else has a better idea for how to control that, I do feel like we need a control on it. So you're not just like you find a ring of wish, and your 3rd level rogue is recharging it, and that would be the most important thing to do all day, right? If you found that is just, yeah, expend every one of these uses to just recharge your ring of wishes. That would be crazy broken. Now the DM shouldn't let you have a ring of wishes at level 3, but you get my point of finding a powerful magic item that has charges and you're just recharging it. So it does need to be mitigated. And I feel like at level 13, you do have access to. Should have had access to rare magic items by a level 11. So this is a couple levels after that, and you can recharge some of them. You might have 1 or 2 rare magic items with charges, but you won't have like a bunch of them. And I feel like rare magic items, even then, are like not broken if you recharge. Once you start getting to very rare and legendary, those are really broken if you recharge them. So I think we should keep it at rare, keep it capped at rare, and you can never recharge anything higher than that. But I didn't want to keep it capped at uncommon. That felt too low. In fact, I kind of debating whether or not that increase to use rare magic items should be moved to level 9. But according to the guidance on magic items for the DMs, they really shouldn't get access to rare magic items to level 11, right? You're having uncommon magic items from levels 5 to 10, and at level 11 you get access to rare magic items. So it felt too early to give it at level 9, although you may just not have any rare magic items, so that's maybe the control. I don't know. Respond in comments. All right, and then moving on finally to level 17. So the problem here was that Eldritch Implosion does nothing if you never run into enemy spellcaster. Now, you shouldn't never run into them for a whole campaign, but you'll go days, plenty of long rests, and plenty of sessions without running into an enemy spellcaster. And if you don't run into an enemy spellcaster, you can't even use your level 17 capstone. Very good point for the people who brought that up. So let's fix that. All right, so we're going to keep everything in there that's in there now, but let's add this. First up, the target takes force damage equal to a roll of d6s equal to the spell's level that you drain magic on counter. I actually think it's empowered sneak attack is the thing you're using, right? So if you succeed on your empowered sneak attack and they fail the con save, they're going to take damage, which felt appropriate just to make it a little bit better of a capstone. It didn't feel quite good enough to be a singular capstone. So we're going to add some damage, which would be kind of a nice additional effect. I don't know, maybe it's not an additional effect, because if they're stunned, they're automatically incapacitated, they automatically break concentration. So the damage isn't going to cause a concentration save. But damage. You're a damage dealing rogue, like that's your job to deal damage. So this felt like a way to increase the damage of Empower Sneak Attack, because Empower Sneak Attack is frankly a little bit behind the Scion Rogue's Bloodthirst feature. The Bloodthirst feature has more potential, has a higher damage potential for the entire day than this does. And so it felt like we needed to give them something a little more to help them catch up a little bit. Level 17 might be too late. I don't know. So this essentially doubles the amount of damage that the Empower Sneak Attack does. It's just split up between, they take that damage now as a reaction, and then when you do your next sneak attack on your turn, it does that damage again. So being split up, it may not be even the same target. Sometimes you might be able to hit the same target, but a lot of times it won't be the same target, and maybe that's a good thing. So I think that's okay. I don't know. Let me know what you think about in the comments. And then the last change to Eldritch Implosion is this one, so that you can use it even if you don't run into enemy spellcasters, which is the creature that you force to make the con save does not have to be the one that casts the spell. So now you can trigger this and use Eldritch Implosion triggered by your allies casting a spell. So you drain some of that magic, and then you implode it on another creature who wasn't even the spellcaster. And they make the con save, they might get stunned, and they might, take this damage. It's still using one of your drain magic uses, because those are all connected now, and it just makes that feature better. Stunned is a good condition to impose, but frankly, the monk can do this since level 5. Every turn, you can do this, and they can do it, level times per short rest. You can do this, 5 times now with your charisma modifier if it's at 20, plus once per short rest. Like, you're not doing this nearly as often as the monk is. I'm sure the monk is still dealing way more damage than you can put out. So that feels strong, but I don't think it's overpowered. It's just powered, right? I think that makes this a good ability, maybe a great ability, but not OP. All right, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. And please, it would really help me if you organize your comments where you just put one top level comment, like on the video, and say, in that comment, just say, do you essentially, if you were voting on this, like I do in the polls, just say, print it as is or need some changes, right? And then under that, reply to your own comment, one comment per feature, and say, name the feature, sense magic, and just say what you think should be done with it. Like either, hey, remove this or change it to this or whatever you like. And then so that'll just make it so much easier That way, all of your suggestions will be under one top level comment for one person, and I can find those instead of like seeing it spread all over and trying to put it together. And please don't send me one giant wall of text with all of your ideas. That is hard to parse, takes so much time, and yeah, this is just taking a ton of time to try to do. So yeah, please organize your comments that way. If you forget or miss or didn't see this in time, that's okay. It's all right. I get it. No need to apologize or anything like that. But if you can, I'd really appreciate it if you organize your comments that way. Okay, so yes, please put your comments in. Let's make this great. Let's make it, because I think the theme of this is super cool and awesome, and let's make it work well. Let's make it so that the mechanics deliver on the fantasy that this subclass is conveying, which is the goal of everything. That's the main goal of every subclass, is what it should be, is it gives the idea of a fantasy, and it should deliver, the mechanics should deliver on that fantasy so that we have fun with it. You need both fantasy and mechanics. They go together. That's all I got for this one. Remember to be cool when you play D&D. Also be cool in the comments, please. And catch you next time.